The crystal chandeliers shattered the light into 1,000 fragments, filling the ballroom with a brilliance almost too perfect to look at, like hundreds of tiny suns suspended from the ceiling. The air was thick with the scent of champagne, perfume, and pretended grace. Every guest moved as if choreographed. Smiles rehearsed, laughter measured, gestures timed to the rhythm of luxury. Behind their shimmer stood those who made it possible, unseen, nameless, gloved, uniformed. Among them was Marcus. He held the silver tray with practiced confidence, eyes lowered. No one looked at him, though he passed within inches of them. His steps were silent, his movements precise. He had learned to disappear in plain sight. Years ago, people had applauded him. His name had once appeared on concert posters. His hands had touched piano keys not for a paycheck, but for life itself. Music had been his breath. Now it was a memory, a different hall, a different stage, a different role. He wasn't a pianist anymore, just a server. He told himself he was used to it. The evening unfolded as usual. Live music blended into the chatter. Waiters moved like clockwork. The room gleamed. White linen, gold cutlery, roses and crystal vases. At the center stood a Steinway grand, polished to a mirror shine, reflecting chandeliers and flawless faces. Each time Marcus passed it, his eyes lingered on the keys. His fingers remembered their weight and coolness. His muscles still knew the rhythm of creation. The recorded music playing through the speakers felt hollow, mechanical. He wanted to turn it off, sit at the piano, and remind them what music really sounded like. But he had no right to even approach it. He didn't know this night would change everything. When he bent to pick up a fallen glass, a few drops of champagne splashed onto the red silk dress of a woman standing before him. Victoria Whitmore, hotel owner, millionaire, the woman on every magazine cover. Her smile was dazzling. Her eyes were ice. For a moment, the ballroom froze. Even the violin seemed to pause mid-note. Victoria looked down at the faint stains, barely visible, yet in her gaze they were a crime. "Are you serious?" Her voice was low, sharp as cut glass. "At least try to hold a tray properly." A ripple of laughter ran through the guests. Marcus straightened, about to apologize, but she cut him off with a smile, one for the audience, not for him. "It's fine," she said smoothly. "Everything's under control." Then, turning back to Marcus, she added, "Unless, of course, you'd rather entertain us? I've heard you play piano." Laughter again, louder this time. Someone clapped. "If you can play better than my hired pianist," Victoria said, raising her voice so the crowd could hear, "I'll marry you." The room erupted. For her, it was a joke, a way to reclaim the spotlight. For him, it was humiliation. Marcus looked at her calmly, not angry, but with something in his eyes she couldn't name. "I don't want to marry you," he said quietly. "But if I play better, you'll keep your word." A hush fell. The laughter died. People exchanged glances. Even Victoria faltered for a heartbeat, then smirked. "How intriguing. Fine. Play. Just don't break my piano." Marcus set the tray down and walked toward the Steinway. Each step was light, but heavy with meaning. He felt the eyes of the room following him, the whispers, the phones recording. But inside, he heard only one thing, the beat of his own heart. He ran a hand across the piano's glossy surface, closed his eyes. His mother's face flashed before him, her gentle hands fixing his bow tie before his first recital. He inhaled deeply and sat. "What will you play?" Victoria asked, raising her glass. "Summertime," Marcus said, "but not the way you know it." He lowered his hands to the keys. The first note came soft, almost uncertain. Then the second, the third, and the ballroom disappeared. Only the music remained. It flowed, soft, fluid, alive, with a depth that couldn't be faked. This wasn't a show of skill or ego. It was a confession. Every note carried a memory of time, of loss, of him. The chatter faded. Even the waiters stopped moving. People listened. They didn't know who he was, but they felt it. Something real, something they hadn't heard in years. The music filled the room like warm light, transforming the ballroom into a kind of temple. Each note a prayer. Someone's lips trembled. Someone else brushed away a tear. When the final note faded, silence held the room captive. No applause, no laughter, just breath, shallow and reverent, as if no one dared to break the spell. Victoria spoke first, her smile tight. That was sweet. Marcus lifted his gaze. I'm not finished. Then he began again. This time, a sonata, fast, sharp, mathematically perfect. Yet beneath the precision pulsed pain and fire. His fingers moved like lightning, commanding every heartbeat in the room. The music built, bolder, deeper, louder, until it stopped being sound and became truth. When it ended, the silence shattered. The crowd erupted, applause, cheers, shouts, cameras flashing. Marcus sat motionless, stunned, as if unsure this was real. His eyes met Victoria's. She stood frozen, glass trembling in her hand. The mockery was gone from her face, replaced by awe and something else. Fear. Who are you? She whispered. The man you never saw, he said quietly. Your mistake. Applause surged again, waves of it. People stood, some reaching toward him, others recording, whispering his name. He had played like a genius, and now they saw him as one. He rose, bowed slightly, and stepped back from the piano. In that moment, Marcus understood his past hadn't died. It had been waiting for this night to breathe again. And now, it sang louder than ever. Victoria stood surrounded by her glittering guests, paralyzed. What began as a joke had turned into her defeat, and everyone had witnessed it. The laughter that once followed her now caught in her throat. The janitor had become the hero of the night. A voice rose from the crowd, teasing but sharp. Well, Victoria, you promised. A ripple of laughter, curiosity, excitement. Victoria forced a smile, lifting her glass as if still in control. One song is enough, she said evenly. Let him play another. Marcus met her eyes, calm, unflinching. There was no challenge, only dignity. Agreed, he said. But the audience decides I'm better. You keep your word. Murmurs, then cheers. Let the expert decide, someone shouted. From the back, a man stood, tall, bespectacled, composed. I'll do it, he said. David Chun, music critic. A hush of approval swept the room. Perfect, Victoria replied, head tilted. Then play, Mr. Reed. David said, just read. Marcus corrected softly. He sat again. This time, the silence was total. No whispers, no laughter, only expectation. He began to play, not cautiously, but with the certainty of someone reclaiming his own voice. The music flowed freely, his fingers speaking truths the room could only feel. The sonata became a story of pride, pain, lost years. Victoria stood unmoving. The glass in her hand shook. She didn't understand how she'd missed it. The greatness hidden in plain sight. When the music stopped, no one clapped. For several seconds, there was only sacred silence. Then the first row stood. Then the next. Davidson rose and declared loudly, professional level. No question. The crowd erupted again, cheers, whistles, ovations. Marcus bowed once, eyes steady. Victoria didn't move. The sound of his final note still echoed in her mind, tangled with a quiet whisper inside her. "You lost." She forced a smile. "One last piece," she said. "Prove you belong here." Marcus nodded. "Then listen." He began the third. A storm, fast, fierce, alive. Emotions surge in waves. Every chorus scar, every pause a confession. He played as if every note burned to the years of silence. The room filled with a roar of sound, then stillness. No one cared about the champagne anymore. No one cared about the gowns, the tuxedos, or the whispered hierarchy of names and titles. Every gaze in the room was fixed on him. When the final note struck, it was like a detonation. The crowd surged to its feet. Applause, cheers, shouts of bravo. Phones raised high, flashes firing. And then, from a front row, an elderly man in a tailored suit stepped forward. "Mr. Reed," he exclaimed, voice trembling with recognition. "I saw you in Geneva 15 years ago. You were the favorite to win." The room fell silent. A murmur rippled through the crowd. "That's him. That's Marcus Reed, the prodigy who vanished." Victoria turned pale. The name spread like wildfire. Marcus Reed. He nodded quietly. "Once. But now, I'm just a man doing his job." The silence thickened. Phones appeared, fingers flying, fact-checking the legend standing before them. Then, from the corner of the room, a woman in a maid's uniform stepped forward. Her voice trembled, but it carried. "I know why he left the stage," said Gloria. "His mother was sick. He sold everything to pay for her treatment. Then he took this job to cover her debts. He kept going, even when the world turned its back on him, because talent isn't enough when you don't have the right last name." Her words hit the room like thunder. The whispers stopped. Even Victoria didn't move. "Enough?" she said finally, her voice low and uneven. "No," said David Chun, the critic, stepping forward. "Let people know who they just listened to. It matters." Marcus raised his head. His eyes met Victoria's. "All I want," he said softly, "is for people to stop being invisible." The words hung in the air, heavy and raw. And then Victoria spoke, every guest watching, waiting. "Fine," she said quietly. "Come with me." They left through a side door, the crowd exploding behind them in a storm of whispers, camera flashes, and live streams. The hallway outside was still, washed in the warm glow of wall lamps. The muffled echo of applause drifted from the ballroom. Victoria walked fast, heels striking the marble. Marcus followed, unhurried. Inside her office, polished with leather, perfume, power, she turned to face him. "Well," she said coldly, "what do you want?" He stood by the door, hands behind his back. "Not money," he said. "An apology. And something else, something that lasts." Her tone sharpened. "Be specific. You'll apologize publicly. Tonight, in front of everyone who watched you try to humiliate me. You'll say my name and admit you were wrong." She let out a dry laugh, brittle at the edges. "That's all." "No," he said evenly. "You'll create a scholarship, in my family's name, for talented students who have no money and no connections. And you'll abolish every rule in this hotel that makes your staff invisible." "You want a revolution?" she asked, voice hardening. "I want fairness." For a long moment, the only sound was the ticking of the clock. Victoria walked to the window, looking out over the city lights. "You realize what that will do to this hotel's reputation?" "I do," Marcus replied. "But refusing will do worse to yours." She turned sharply. "Is that a threat?" "A warning," he said calmly. "There are dozens of recordings. Right now, the world isn't talking about your charity gala. They're talking about how you treated a man the world now calls a genius." Her breath caught, For the first time, she had no words. Then she took a slow step toward him. You think you've won. No, Marcus said quietly. I just think it's time you made the right choice. They stood face to face, pride, fear, defiance, and something new between them. Respect. Finally, Victoria exhaled. Fine, she whispered. I'll do it. Will you let me stand beside you? He asked, a faint smile crossing his lips. To show you're in control? To show we can end this with dignity, she replied. They returned to the ballroom. The instant the doors opened, silence fell. Cameras swung toward them. Victoria stepped forward first, composed, radiant, her voice steady. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, tonight I witnessed not just talent, but courage. I spoke words I never should have spoken, and I owe an apology to Marcus Reed. The audience froze. This man is an extraordinary musician, one I underestimated, and I intend to keep my word. On behalf of the Whitmore family, we are establishing the Reed Scholarship for young musicians without means or influence, and effective immediately. Every policy that silenced or diminished our staff is abolished. The applause was thunderous. Hotel workers along the walls trembled, some in tears. Marcus stood silently beside her. He knew this wasn't the end. It was the overture. When the roar subsided, Victoria leaned toward him and murmured, Are you satisfied? He smiled faintly. This was only the first chord. She met his gaze, and for the first time that night, she smiled, genuinely, without armor. Then play on, Mr. Reed, she said softly. The world is listening. And for the first time in years, it truly was